budget hearing, special meeting. Amanda, could you call the roll, please?
Hall.
Here.
Bowers.
Yes.
Curtis.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. We'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Charlie, seconded by Ernie. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Do we have any public comments? Looks like no public comments, so we'll move to the budget hearings. Everybody should have their book that Jill and Amanda put together, and Brienne Suber and County Clerk is first, which should be 410, General Fund County Clerk. We do the first one. Which, or go ahead, do it.
Okay,
However you want to do
so, everything is pretty much, the same on the general fund county clerk, area. There is one line that is exceptionally higher than, any other year. That's the office expense line, the 60100. And that I am asking for 4,400, which is what the amount is that we've been asking for the last several years. However, there is an addition of 5,300 in that line, and that is strictly for a plat cabinet that has to be purchased. And it's an extremely high amount, obviously. But the cabinet that we have currently holds, it has 800 envelopes that it holds. The last time we purchased one was in the 60s. And these envelopes are for archiving purposes. So we're able to store the plats, we're able to look at the plats and handle them without damaging the plats, like what we do if we just have a drawer that we put the plats in. It also keeps them in an order, so they're numbered, so we know exactly where that plat is when we go to look for it. I don't know if I said this already. The last time we purchased a plat cabinet like this was in the 60s. It was like in 1964. Not sure what the price was back then, but they don't make the size of plat cabinet that we purchased then. So this is a one that's half the size. But it is, we have one envelope left, I think, and that can be filled within a month. It could be filled in a week. It could be filled however many times plats get recorded. But that is the reason for that cabinet, or for that line going up as much as it did. I did receive 2 quotes for it. One company gave me a quote for approximately $7,300. The other company gave me a quote for approximately $5,300. So obviously going with the cheaper one is where I'm at on that. But otherwise, everything else in that is the same as last year, except the department head salaries and chief deputy salaries and deputy clerk salaries. Those are increased with the union increases. And then I was asking for 2.75, which is the same as the union increases for the chief deputies. Does anyone have any questions about that area? Okay, then going on to the elections budget. In that, the election judge salaries and the ballots and supplies both increased due to there being 2 elections in the next year. The increase in ballots and supplies, what we had asked for, or I had asked for in 2020, went up about $4,000 or $3,000, I think, due to the contract increase and publication costs for our sample ballots. That amount is a minimum of $2,500 is what it costs to print a sample ballot in the newspaper. So with those prices increasing, that went up. Otherwise, everything else is remaining the same or on the same line for what I am asking for. I believe, well, training also increased because of the 2 elections. We have to have 2 election judge trainings during 2022. So that line also increased as well from what it was in 2021. But if you look at 2022, it's about the same. Looking at automation for county clerk, the county clerk fees leaving around $3,000. That appears is what the money that's going to come in for the automation is going to be. As far as expenses, I put that at $2,000, which it might not come out. I didn't put anything down for the transfer to the general fund because if we take $5,000 out of there, plus I spend some money, we're depleting that fund every year by taking $5,000 out of it. So I didn't put any money in there for a transfer out of the county clerk line. There is the death certificate surcharge grant that we receive. That is based on the amount of death certificates that we sign. So it's been approximately $1,200 for the last several years, so I left that at that, and then we have to spend that on specific death certificate printing items, so that will be spent next year. In the automation county recorder's fees are increasing. This year is kind of an exceptional year for recording. Lots and lots and lots of properties are being sold, so I did leave it at $4,500 or $45,000 for the 2022 budget because I think that's going to go down, but it might not. You never know. The automation expenses, I am budgeting for $25,000, which I did that for last year or for this year also, and I'm intending on getting some documents microfilmed because it's desperately needed. We've talked about that in IT, and I've been working with a few companies to try and figure out what I definitely need to get, microfilmed and what I need to get scanned. Obviously, scanning is the way I thought we were supposed to be going, but the state archives insist that microfilm is better. So with that, talking to Lisa Hines, that is what she is required to do, is microfilm all of her documents still. So I feel like microfilming is where I need to go, and we haven't microfilmed documents in our office since 2002, I believe. So I really want to get those documents microfilmed, and the reason why the scanned images, like the state says, the scanned images, you can lose them. The file could become corrupt at some point in time. And we actually had that happen probably 3 weeks after I talked to the girl from the state. We lost a couple pages of a mortgage, which cannot happen. We have to be able to access those documents. Thankfully, the title company was able to help us out and get us the pages that we needed, but that might not always happen. So we need to make sure that we have these documents. So I am budgeting the $25,000, and I intend to do a microfilm project. Hopefully I'll be able to get some of it done this year. Hopefully I'll be able to get some of it done next year. I don't think microfilm is near as expensive as the scanning and indexing would be for putting them on the computer, but that is also something that is necessary so searchers can search remotely. As far as transfer to the general fund, I had put that it was negotiable. So whatever you guys think you need out of there, I would be fine with. If you need to do, what is it this year, 25, Jill? What?
15.
Yes.
15.
15
Okay.
and 5.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong
You
line.
have a number
So,
in there, Joe.
If you need 15, I can take 15 out of that. to transfer if you need more for the purchase of that cabinet, because that's not necessarily an automation expense, but employee salary could be. You can take more out of that to supplement. As far as election grants go, I have not received any grant information from the state, but they assure us that grants are available, so as soon as we get any type of information from them. But right now, we don't have any pending grant monies coming in for election grants. So then, as far as if we look at the, what? Oh, I'm sorry. If we look at the revenues for what I'm responsible for reporting, the election judge salary reimbursement, I put 6,000 down because they've only been guaranteeing one reimbursement. So I am putting $6,000 in for the reimbursement of election judges. Liquor licenses, I have it 6,800 because that is the total that of the liquor licenses that we have. I didn't put anything more than that. Looking at like real estate transfer tax, the county recording fees and the county clerk fees. The transfer tax is going to be a lot, and the reason why I'm saying that is because of the money that is that houses are being sold for. Those are increasing, but I didn't increase it that much because I anticipate those prices going down and us not receiving as much money. As far as recording fees, I put at 75, which was the same I had budgeted for this year. We have been recording a lot of documents, so that may be something that you may think we need to increase with. You never know on how recording documents are gonna go. Pretty soon, they're gonna be able to start foreclosing on people, so we're gonna start getting mortgage foreclosures and that sort of thing. So those will increase our recording fees, but I don't know if sales will drop in that time. And then county clerk fees, looking at that, when I did my budget sheet, I did not remember that we had a fee study done and we had increased our fees. So I do think that line could probably go up to maybe like 75,000 for the county clerk fees. I just feel like we've had a lot of people coming in to get certificates that weren't able to do things during COVID, and I feel like that's why we're a lot higher than what we have been. May even could go up to 80 if 81 was our actual for those fees, because 2020 I didn't think we were as busy as what we were for part of the year because of COVID. So that amount could probably increase to, I would say 75 to be safe. And then, like I said, the transfer from the county recorder line can be talked about 15 if you need it, or more if you need it. Any questions about
So
that
the one that probably is just that county clerk fee, you think?
That's
the only one
would
that.
go up. I think should go up.
Let's make a note that when we go through our list of things, that the county clerk fee, maybe we want to adjust that one. Go through that at the end of the day. That's a plus 10,000. Okay.
Okay, then the last thing I just want to talk to you guys about are the little handouts that I gave out. There's one from VBS, which is a quote for new election equipment. And this is equipment only. So this would be your ballot reading devices, the ballot marking devices, the batteries, flash drives that are needed, the software, and printers that are needed for the equipment to run. So that's a total of $4,077,275, or $477,275. So This amount, or this quote was given to me probably about a month or two ago from our current election vendor. And then we also have a quote here from Liberty Systems, which this is from 2018. And I know it's obviously old, but it's just to give you guys an idea of how much money I'm talking about that we're going to need in order to fund new election equipment. So the equipment purchase price from Liberty is $380,975. And they had given an option to give a down payment of $80,000 and do a finance option, which both companies have said that they can do finance options if that's what the county is interested in. Liberty's, what do I want to call it? Their election, the cost per election is not included in this amount. And it is on the back page, at the bottom where it has the annual fees, there's the $25,200. And so that amount plus on the front page, the $17,628 per quarter is what Liberty would charge yearly to the county, where GBS's runs about, sorry. GBS runs about $44,000 a year. So when you add in the quarterly cost from Liberty, the annual fees that they charge, and what GBS charges a year, even though their amounts are different on the equipment, the total ends up being about the same, which is about the 500-some thousand that we need in order to run an election. So, like I said, this is strictly for you guys to just see the prices that have been given. Obviously, Liberty would have to submit another estimate, but it's going to be approximately $500,000 that we're looking at to be able to replace the entire election system.
Out of that annual stuff, like, because there's the annual fee or whatever, like you were just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I look at the general fund elections, is that
That's coming out
77?
of ballots and supplies.
So that's different from this stuff.
That is different, yes.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, are we already paying for some of this under the current system? And
Under what Liberty quoted, you're already paying for some of that under the current system, but the almost $500,000 is what it will cost to get us up and running for the for a new system. The way Liberty has theirs broken out, like I said, there's several where, like when I'm looking at it, if you just look at voting equipment purchase price on the Liberty amount of $380,975, or yeah, $380,975. Then if you look at GBS with the $477,275, it's not really comparing apples and apples, because Liberty didn't add in their $25,200 that's going to be an annual license fee. That's already added into the GBS amount. So there's a little bit of difference, but like I said, when you add up the amount that we're spending for a yearly contract, when you add up the totals, it's going to be approximately $475,000, $500,000 as a good round number. I mean, obviously we can get a better price when we know that there's funding available, but this is what I have right now. Just an approximate of what we need to be thinking about.
And Any more news on like that, the CARES Act or whatever that money we got, if that can be used on it or?
Well, I had said in one of the meetings last month that I had received an opinion, and it was actually from NACO that, okay, so the answer from NACO regarding using America Rescue funds for election equipment, it says, recipients may use this funding for capital investment projects like the purchase of voting/elections equipment as they pertain to responding to the public health crisis, or as they pertain to a reduction in revenue experienced as a result of the pandemic. So with that, they're saying, yes, we would be able to use some of the money to purchase that. Kankakee is using theirs to purchase the equipment, and I believe they're citing infrastructure as their reasoning. But I am not 100% sure. That was just a thought by the folks there.
When do we have to, I mean, do we have to decide what that money is being used for by a certain date, like before the end of this fiscal year, or?
We have to report by the end of this year what we would like to use the funds for. We have not received them yet. I have the notification that, everything's set up and we are scheduled to receive it sometime within the next couple of weeks, because it says 30 to 60 days. I just was on a webinar yesterday talking about certain things, and it just kind of, like Brian said, it's how you want to classify it, and how you can word it as far as how it can be used towards a capital expense for infrastructure. Obviously, we can't use it as a revenue loss, because I can't show revenue loss for last year, so.
Well,
more to come.
and
So-
refresh my memory, or for other people that, I remember Lisa talking about this, that our equipment's old. I mean, I feel like
It is, yes.
And I know that's the fact, and I'm not
Right.
discrediting that, but just so everybody's aware, this has been an ongoing
It has been.
conversation that we need to do something for.
We are to the point.
Since
where
I've been
we
on the
need to
board.
do something.
Yeah.
We were to where we were okay, and now we're to the point where our stuff was still good. Now I'm classifying it as fair. We have more devices that are breaking. So when those devices break, they don't produce these devices anymore. So they can, like our election vendor can try and fix them, but we're purchasing refurbished devices when we do purchase devices. They still, like I said, they still work. It's just a matter of having the ability to buy the parts, buy the pieces, that sort of thing. That's where we're getting into the problem. I am going to sign a contract with GBS for another 3 elections. So I guess my ultimate goal, we also have an issue, I guess I should comment on this. Our GEM software, which is what we use to create our ballots, to do our districting, to do all of our vote totals and to program our devices and everything like that. That software is made by Dominion, and Dominion does not support GEMS anymore. So our vendor doesn't need the support from GEMS or from Dominion. However, they could, and this is a big could, they could say that we cannot use their software anymore. Like if our computer crashes that our software is on, we can't load it onto another computer because we have to have Dominion's okay, and they are not doing that anymore. So we are to a point where we have to do something. So
But
like
that's a separate issue from this.
it's kind of the same because it's what we use to run all of this
I mean,
stuff.
the 475, 500, would that fix that problem?
That would fix that problem.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of, I'm going to sign another contract for 3 elections. So ultimately, by the the next presidential primary, I don't want to have to start using new election equipment on such a big election, but, that's where I would like to start using new election equipment. But
If you sign with them and then we do something before that, that'll work with us on that or what?
The company that we're currently with will work with us on that, yes. They would be able to change that contract and everything like that, so there would be no issue there. It's a matter of if Liberty came in
Way lower.
way lower, and then we would have to get out of that contract. But, right now, like I said, I'm gonna sign.
Do they make you sign the minimum like that, or it's like a minimum 3, or?
That's just the election cycle that they have us sign contracts for.
I guess what I was getting at is that if more than likely we're gonna use them on if we do something,
Right,
that
yes.
then probably doesn't matter, but.
Right. The thing about our current election vendor that I also want to disclose, their election equipment was just certified by the state this year. So it hasn't been, it's been tested in elections, but it hasn't been live on election day to where people are going to the polls and voting. And they have some counties that are moving forward with purchasing their equipment, but I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be the first
And that's
county
that's
to have it.
Liberty?
That's the GBS
GBS.
equipment, yes. So there's just something about, I mean, I would like to be a trendsetter, but I don't want to be the first trendsetter on new election equipment, just saying. So that's kind of where
Alright.
I'm at.
Well, then we probably need to make a list too of, for this money, the Recovery Act money, whatever, to have this be considered.
We've asked the state's attorney to look into the laws of Illinois to see if we can establish a fund where we can set money aside for this purpose.
Sure.
Because right now, any money that we earmark for it has to be spent within that fiscal year.
Right.
And that's not where we're at. But if we can do this, say it's whatever amount of money we want to set aside and whatever we can afford each year, maybe in a couple of years or 3 years, we can have the money for it. To me, the big issue that we're also gonna have to face with this is called a word that begins with I, inflation.
Already here.
That's $11 trillion that the federal government is pumping around, throwing around, is gonna come back to haunt.
But you're selling.
Already
draw
is.
yourself back.
It's gonna get worse
Right.
before it gets better.
You know, college sometimes, in your
Okay. Well,
Her 500,000 can easily get to 6 or 7 by the time they're ready to do it. So,
Which, like I said, the vendors have said that they can put us on a, like, if we want to do a leasing, if we want to do a payment option, I just need to know funding wise where.
well, I guess my personal feeling is that if we have it's not, under normal circumstances, I don't know where we would come up with the money, but if we can use this,
Right,
the stimulus thing or whatever, and we've been talking about this since I've been on the board, and we obviously know it's a problem, my feeling would be, okay, out of that money, we probably need to do something with this. But it needs to be high on the list of where to spend that
yes,
money.
please.
Because we've been talking about it for a long time, and part of the reason why no one's ever done anything is because we don't have the money to do it.
Well, and so far, that's the only request I have is the voting machines.
I got a couple requests.
Well, me too.
And Mike McTaggart needs money.
The main danger with that is that if we do it that way, and the judge decides that we can't, we have to pay it back.
new voter laws like.
Well, but it sounds like there's some precedent here with the NACO or whatever, and
Drop you off your.
and Kentucky's doing some, I mean,
I think there are.
probably need to dot our i's and cross our t's, but it looks
We're-
like
right.
it's
Right.
promising.
We are definitely
Just
working
quit
like
voting
with
for
other
it.
counties and in talks with other counties as far as,
Too bad.
because there are, I mean, there
Everybody's
are
in the
several
same boat.
counties that use the same
Can't
equipment
afford
that we
it.
use, that they're in the same predicament that we're in.
Based on all the stuff from the election last year, it sounds like there's a lot of places all over the country that might be using money like this for those kind of
True.
things. Okay, very good.
You have mail-in ballot?
Any other questions for Bree? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Write it on a piece of paper.
All right.
Preferred milk
Mr.
butter,
Bob.
please.
Well, I should not be that long-winded, mine's pretty simple. Basically, most of my increases in the budget are salary. Just in the assessment office, just the general salaries, which are our union contract, and then I asked for the same increase that the elected officials were getting. And then publications is the same. Tax maps, I raised a little bit because of increase in volume as far as, it seems like there's been a lot more activity with some deeds. And then education I raised because of my appointment is up in next May. If I get reappointed and I need to stay qualified, I have to get 3 classes in next year, which is not a problem doing. It's just a question of whether there's money there to do it. So, for my office, that's pretty much the assessment side. That's pretty much it. Is there any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Salaries board review, I left all that pretty much the same. I increased the travel on that because I have a board review member that comes from Lake Iroquois, so that increases mileage. The other 2 are from the Milford area. So we used to have one guy in the board review that was local, so the mileage wasn't as high, but this is, so. And that board review member from Loda is now the new elected assessor to Loda Township. So he's gonna have to resign as of December 31st from the board review. And we're currently working on a replacement from the same area, so we can change the mileage and I kind of want somebody in the board review that's from that part of the county anyway, because it seems to be a little more volatile down there, so.
Okay.
GIS, basically the income is based off of recording fees, however recording goes, how goes the funding in the GIS. I did use some expenditures out of GIS to reimburse postage for 2 mailings for farmland assessment changes last year. I still have scanning on the budget to spend out of that. I don't know if I'll get it done or not because I've been told now since COVID, Bruce Harris, DevNet is pretty much, we're going to go to remote, for the most part, remote working, and they're not going to have any extra people to send down there for any length of time. They can set us up and get us set up, but I'd have to do the scanning myself, which can be done. It's not, I'd just have to have a computer set up for it, which I have, and then, but I might, kind of do some high school, possibly a high school summer person to come in and scan stuff in for 3 months. And then I haven't put it in here because I'm not in the process of doing it yet. But just a note for future reference, the last time the county was flown for the GIS was 2014 when we originally set the new system up. Right now we have neighbors all around us that are with Bruce Harris. And so I'm going to let Bruce Harris know that if one of the other counties is interested in doing a fly or doing a refloat their area, that we might be interested in doing that with them to save some money because the more counties that are involved, the cheaper the cost.
Sure.
And that would all come out of GIS funding. That would not be really a budgetary item. That would be extra money to the county. That money's there now in the GIS fund. Okay. Planning and zoning.
The highway department and that stuff, was that?
I don't know if Joel's still gonna do that or not. I ask him every year, and Joe would probably know more about it than I would. I mean, they use it, so I assume he'll still do that, but that'll be a part of his budget proposal if he's gonna expend that money for me or not. Zoning, everything pretty much the same there. the income side,
What did you say, sir?
Joel has it budgeted for 10,000.
he does,
Yeah,
okay. How much?
10,000.
I've talked to Kurt about property tax. It used to be his they said it was his responsibility. Well, I have more information on property tax than he does out of the gate. So I kind of worked with him and talked to him about it, and then he said, why don't you just give him enough? And basically what I've done is farmland increase is the same percentage-wise for the last several years. And we've seen about a $65,000 increase on property tax consistent the last 2 or 3 years. So that's basically what I did in the initial stage right now, because obviously more data is becoming available as we speak. So the 1.7 million is, I'm pretty confident in that number as far as property tax. You can see it in 19 it was 1.5 million. 2020 was 1.57 million, and what was the projection, Bill, for collection this year?
1.64.
1.64. So we're seeing that kind of 60,000, 65,000 increase each year. And the assessment side, farmland's a given. It's going up again. Everybody knows that. So that I left that where that is. And then building and zoning fees, in the last month, this month was pretty poor as far as building permits. So I think the lumber costs have finally caught up with the people who are going to build or do something major have done it. I don't see, unless there's a major change in lumber prices going in the next 6 months, I see that pretty slow area. So I don't know what to predict for next year, so I left it pretty stable there on the income. So that's pretty much all of it in a nutshell. Pretty simple. Any questions? Like I said, I don't have any big, expenditures or anything like that. If I do have a flyover, if we do a flyover whenever we do it, it's paid for. I don't have to worry about that. So most of my increase is all salary.
Yep. Okay,
All right?
I think I'm good. Everybody else good? All right, thank you.
Yeah, we'll get you back on track.
Are we all over the board this year like we normally are on salary increases where everybody's?
You know, everybody's
Have you looked at
been
that at all?
anywhere from 2.5% to 4%, so nothing too outrageous, for the most part. I know Bob didn't say, but he's got his chief deputy in at 3%.
Okay, Eric.
Get back on schedule. Run, you can simply Bob.
Page 19.
Yes. It's 110, 225, page 19, the lower right hand corner.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, salary, top of the page. I just put 2% increase. And let's see, office expense the same. Mileage and travel, it looks like for the 2021 budget, mileage and travel is 900 and gas and oil is 340. I wonder if that got accidentally switched, Ms. Johnson, because in the proposal that I sent in last year, that's reversed. So regardless,
Either way, yeah.
regardless of what it's supposed to be this year, I just switched those two.
Yeah.
In terms of dollar amounts, kept it the same. Maintenance of autos, keep that the same. And radios and equipment, drop that down. Was that 1,000 this year? Because I thought I would have to buy a radio. I ended up getting a grant to get that radio. So I'm gonna drop that down. And probably $500 will be able to get a couple more pieces of radio equipment. The radio itself is usually 1,000 or more, depending on what you're getting. and that price is just going up as radios become, as radio infrastructure turns to digital. But next year, I think we'll just focus on getting ancillary things. Education and dues, I'd like to keep that the same. Once again, this year, the pandemic has caused us not to go to conferences where I will have to spend those things. But when the pandemic cleans up, then hopefully next year we'll be able to continue our education and I'll need those funds. Service contracts, I dropped down just a little bit. A large portion of that, just a reminder, is the mass notification system that we have called HyperReach. That has proved useful time and time again. Also within that line item is, if I need area-wide to do a special tech project, just in case.
Yeah.
Telephone, that monthly bill's gone down, so I dropped down the annual. And that is it. Overall, slight decrease in overall budget from 2021.
There we go.
Any
Looks
questions?
good. I think we're good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's what it was pushing in here. I'm gonna go ahead and let Angel take her time, and then I'll present after Angel, if that's okay. That way you can move on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
First of all, I want to tell you that.
She's not on the schedule.
Okay.
She's
Very
not.
I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
That's okay.
It's been kind of hectic lately. There was a power outage this weekend, which I wasn't aware of because I live in Walford. And when I came in, my computer was down and so was my printer. So I was not able to give out anything to you today. And of course, at this point too, it's fairly new. I'm still training underneath Ken and really just getting down to basics since I've only been doing this. But from all the meetings, which have been quite a few meetings these last 3 weeks with various organizations, meeting with DCEO, meeting with Champaign County Regional Planning, talking about potentially developing an economic development strategy plan. Now, where that is different is in 2010, they did a regional plan over 6 different counties. And the reason they did that is to create efforts to get bigger funding through the federal, okay? On this point, it would be just strictly focused in on Iroquois County. Also, meeting with Michelle Meadows, talking about vocational training and expansion of that in Iroquois County. And she's working on getting that together and how we can work together with the businesses to figure out what Iroquois County needs to, just specifically for this area. Really focusing in on what it's going to take to keep people here. And then workforce development, of course. All these meetings lead up to what I'm just about ready to tell you, okay? So what we're looking for is additional assistance potentially for a comprehensive economic development strategy plan that would be through Champaign Regional Planning. And I just talked to Kathy Larson yesterday, and she did inform me that they are there to assist county and municipalities with the new ARP funding. So I'll be sending that out. I didn't have every mayor. I've looked through all my mayor's lists and made sure, because I don't want anyone to miss this. I'm missing a couple, so I need to find those, and I'll probably talk to Brianne to try to get those. And then I'll copy in Michelle and whoever, Chairman Scher. But she wanted to make sure and convey that they're there to help and answer questions. We're looking at potentially additionally assistance for marketing, so website development or upgrading the website development to include information from the strategic plan, business attraction through the website, job search and assistance through businesses. The marketing would include social media outreach, which would be reaching out to develop this increased or a better website, so when people look at that website, they can know what is here. And that involves each town too, and what their attributes are too. That's long-term, obviously. I mean, we're working on it, but this is all very fast. Additional assistance upgrading office equipment, cell phone, computer system, printer. I've been having a heck of a time with the computer and the printer. And I don't even have a cell phone, which the office phone I can afford to the cell phone, which is good for travel. Of course, traveling expenses, I plan on, which I already have been reaching out to state, county, municipality. No, I'm working on municipality officials and organization. I would like to travel more to Indiana to meet up with the Indiana officials about the interstate sediment reduction plan, because the flooding affects the whole county, not just one spot. And then traveling to other regional economic meetings to gather more information on what they're doing and use that to help us. Miscellaneous, additional assistance for miscellaneous expenses would be, I will be attending more economic development training, and also working for grants to assist that. Also, I'll backtrack, and for the strategic plan, there would, I would assume, be grants to assist with that too. I did increase newspaper subscriptions so I can keep up what's happening in Iroquois County, and maybe potentially, hopefully not, I could use emails instead of postage, but there might be some postage eventually to just try to get in touch with everybody about what's happening and what's going on. Other than that, any questions?
I think
And I eventually, like I said, I'm working on getting the marketing numbers, the strategic plan. They're putting something together. This is all coming around, so there will be more firmer numbers as this time goes on.
So what are you asking for the county's contribution this year?
I need you to be asking that. I don't know. But I know that with the strategic plan, I'm sure that it's going to be, I wouldn't even be able to fathom, I was hoping, since Champaign Regional worked with that, it was a regional plan though, and it's totally different ballgame. But they are working on it, and they will be getting it to us shortly. Might even be tomorrow, I don't know, so I'm getting this information together as soon as possible.
For FY21, it's budgeted for $17,500, and I kept it the same for FY22 until.
What's your cutoff date? I'm working as fast as I can to get as many different bids on marketing and stuff like that. I've got one thing on marketing I've had, but really I want to keep this in Iroquois County, and that is reaching out to the people that are in marketing. And I know so far I've not, have heard about one. And if anybody has more information, please, let us know. But I mean, it's gathering this information is in a 3-week process, and attending all the meetings that have been happening about all sorts of conversations on economic development is it's been quite a task. But we will look forward to be able to do that. Is there a cutoff? What is the cutoff? And is it today?
no.
No, it's not today.
Because I plan on getting more numbers.
Yeah.
That's not the problem.
We
It's
won't
just being able
vote
to
in-
compile it and put it.
Probably knowing something by the end of August would be
Yeah.
best.
I can do that. I think I can do that.
Or sooner, but that would be,
Well, as soon as I
that
get
would be
it,
the,
would
probably.
be good. And then
Mhm.
when would we review at another finance meeting? Is that how this would work?
You can just send, if you have an idea or whatnot, you can send it over to me, and I'll update their sheets
Okay.
for them, and then they'll have a discussion.
Today and tomorrow are the only ones that are just for budget, and then we'll talk about budget kind of in all the normal finance committee meetings that happen
Okay.
after tomorrow, so. Today and tomorrow are the only kind of special meetings, and then next week we have our normal finance committee meeting, and we'll talk about more budget stuff, and then depending on what happens, sometimes we have had a special meeting at the end of August, but
We try not.
and we try not to. But there might be a special meeting towards the end of August, but otherwise it would be the first week in September during our normal finance committee meeting. But Jill can get you all those
Trying
dates
to
and
get
stuff. But
better numbers.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I
We'll do
guess.
Jill's finance and IT here.
Yes. All right, so
Page 20.
this is 110, 510, page 21, on the bottom right-hand corner. So to start out with, salary, I did put in a 4% increase based off of the online classes I've been taking through the Government Finance Officers Association, per our budgeted amount of education and dues expense. I've been trying to stay within that amount of budgeted funds to do those classes. Also, increased with the audit. We added a single audit this year, which was new for me, and we got everything submitted, and actually I'm waiting on final copies to come in. As far as administrative assistant salary, I also asked for increase for that line item, and deputy clerk as per asked me is 4% as well. And then for office expenses, I kept the same. Computer copy paper, I kept the same. Systems expense, this is one obviously we will talk about. Per Michael Tabor's 5-year plan for this account, the SAN, UPS, and storage refresh is past needing done, and he has it estimated at 40,000. And then as far as the UPS batteries, they are past needing done as well, but they're 2,500. And then as far as no warranty support, right now we have our backup server refresh. The warranty is coming up on that, and it will not be in support after this year. The disaster recovery server is the same. So that may be something we need to
Are
look
those
at.
ones that we can do the extended, or what was that we did that on last year?
The SAN
The
servers.
SAN server.
Yeah,
Can we do that on this backup server, or no, the backup server is just, our old server.
the backup is just, all it is it'll back up all of our files that we currently have for so many days. I have been working with Adam on Tuesdays, because for some odd reason, we had so many backups in there, as far as it would back up daily, weekly, monthly, and then yearly. We don't need it that many times a year, which takes up a lot of room on that server. So we went ahead and changed it to monthly and yearly, which that should help. But just again, this is per Michael's 5-year plan that I went ahead and used that number of 77,500. Publications I lowered to 100. I kept mileage and travel the same because I am hoping to be able to attend some of the conferences and meetings held by the state, especially in the Illinois Department of Commerce regarding the ARP funds. Education and dues, I kept the same. Software contract licenses is 77,575. You can see here on the bottom, everything on the top as far as endpoint, email, server, and patching, that has to do with per computer cost and remoting in, which we saw an increase with COVID as far as computers being purchased and people utilizing remote access. Quarterly the NEVDET updates, that is all what is used by the treasurer's office, the assessment office, and the county clerk's office. And then as far as security awareness, the SAN hardware support, the sonic wall, firewall, all that good antivirus that we use. The Abilla licensing is the accounting software we use in the finance office. Shelter Pro and GoDaddy is the animal control website. And then website hosting is Webfoot, and that's what they give us 4 hours per month of service, which is kind of nice, because then you just email them what you want and they post everything and get it on there, and they made some changes for me. And they designed our website. And we can make changes to that if we would like to. As far
Speaking of
as,
which,
yeah.
The website does work on your phone.
Yes, it does.
yes, yeah, we gotta fix
There you
that.
go.
Service contracts, left it at 35,600 based off a trend. I haven't heard from Michael if there's gonna be an increase on weekly visits, but, those are something that has really helped reduce our tickets, so I'd like to keep that. And it's kind of, and again, it's nice to have somebody that is very familiar with our buildings and our equipment. It takes Adam a lot less time to mark things off his list, and he does give us a list every Tuesday of what he has completed. Maintenance and repairs I kept the same, and then contingency I kept the same.
What's the big drivers on this, the licenses that you went through
Yeah.
versus the extra 6? Are they just all annually increasing? I mean, there's,
You know, they
there some-
increase pretty minimally. The biggest jump
I mean, it looks
for,
like it increases about that much every year, but.
yeah, the biggest jump is we added so many computers with COVID. And the per cost for antivirus and being able for those computers to remote in, the backups that need to be done on those computers, it just increased everything. So, any other questions?
Mike?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Jill, do you have any sort of tally about what COVID has cost us in that way? You've mentioned new computers. I'm also thinking about the Zoom meetings, the remote, the
Mhm.
phone call, the conference calls. Do you have any inkling at all what?
I really don't, because a lot of that stuff was covered by grants. But however, the portion with area-wide and the antivirus and all that with the services, for example, the health department, they were getting billed separately and they were using their grant money. I did not plan on that happening for this year, just in case. Like I said, that number could come down. It just,
I was just curious.
I would shoot it high. Yep, no problem. All right, and then, let's see here, 110,615 is other. This one, pretty easy again, group insurance, I don't have any numbers, we're still, again, we have that bidding out this year as well.
We're at
But I-
6, we skipped county board.
Oh, okay, my bad, go back. All right, as far as salaries go,
What's that?
Can we go back to the other one?
The IT, 110,510.
110,510, okay?
Whatever number it is. I guess I would like the committee to consider the first item on their department head salary. I think that's a position that we need to have some sort of a understanding, a plan, whatever in place. The person that Jill replaced was being paid a considerably higher salary. And I'm not suggesting that we use that necessarily as a standard, but I do think as a department head and the services that she's providing and so forth, that we should be accelerating her salary and it's somewhat in accordance with that and have some sort of target in mind as to what we think the position should be,
Yeah.
paying. So I do think we need to reconsider on that item.
Okay. We're good. County board.
Okay, as far as department head, assistant head, county board members, community services, I left them all the same. Again, the redistricting hasn't been finalized as far, and the, salaries and per diems have not been finalized, so I just left it the same. Office expenses the same. This one's all pretty easy. It's pretty much all the same. The only line that I did increase was auditor fees, because we will more than likely have to do another single audit for this year.
Okey-dokey.
Which is good, we plan on it now. Now it's 110,615, sorry about that. Again, with the insurance, with it being bidded out, I haven't heard back from Susie, but we do have a 10% cap, so I went ahead and put in the 10% increase. We do have an increase of employees that got hired through COVID, mainly in the health department. Again, most of their salaries are paid through a grant, but the insurance comes through us. Accumulated sick pay, I left the same. Let's see here. The transfer to the Regional Office of Education, they do have a new person. Leo Sherman is no longer with us. We have Miss Meadows, and they have requested $81,030. This year, it's budgeted for $75,000. The transfer to Joint Dispatch Fund, I put in a $85,000 number based off of this year. It is $78,000. I added a slight increase. However, Eric Raymond's sheets, and he'll be here to discuss his, but he's going to request $192,391.79. So that number will have to be adjusted through compromises and such with the transfer to Joint Dispatch and Mr. Raymond. Transfer to county capital improvements. I didn't put anything in that line, and contingency I left at $50,000. Any other questions on that one?
On that group insurance, I feel like we've talked about this before. Why does the general fund pay for the health department stuff when they're in a different fund?
Well, they pay into that fund. So when you see, like when I talk about the next one, the 115,615, you'll see on there it says transfer from other funds. That's the health department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
So then 115,615, I left interest on investments the same. Transfer from other funds, that includes the health department. They transfer over their portion of the health insurance costs. Transfer from, let's see here. So as far as like employee contributions,
Okay, but in the general fund number, then this 586 would just be for our
that,
people.
on the, right,
The general
that's
fund.
just for the county fund.
Well, that's what confused me a
Yeah,
little bit,
okay.
because you were saying they hired more people, and I'm thinking, well, how did that impact us?
Right.
Okay,
I'm
yes.
sorry, I
No, that's
apologize,
fine.
but that impacted their number.
Yes, okay.
And dental is all 100% paid, so it's basically an in and out. Same thing with vision. And then the general fund contribution is in there at 586, again, based off a 10% increase. I don't have any numbers yet. So, and this is the expense sheet that I use is the page right after page 27, if you have any questions. ETSB, Joint Dispatch, Highway, and Public Health all pay their portion.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine.
Yeah, no problem.
We don't look at it that often, so I was like,
I know,
didn't
it's-
think that was right, but, okay.
We move money from
Yeah.
here, there, and pay this one. All right, and then unemployment compensation, just based off of 1.5%, $13,000 base. And the number of employees we have right now, again, 911 Joint Dispatch, Veterans Assistance, and Highway, I already said Highway. No, I did not. And Highway, they all pay for their portions. Last year it was budgeted at 29,000. This year I have it held 29,600, so pretty much on. And then for Fund 125, workers' compensation, this is page 29. Again, at the top, the revenues, property taxes, and then the health department, veterans assistance, joint dispatch, and 911 all pay for their portions. That is based off of different rates that we receive from Bitco, the insurance company. And I get a new sheet every year after I do the workman's comp audit. And the rates for this year are listed under that expense assumptions. So it basically was budgeted at 140. We did go down. They cut us a little bit of a check this year, which was nice. So I budgeted 125, 230 in that. Liability fund number 130. Again, we have it out for bid, so I'm not sure how that's gonna go, just based off of a trend, I left it at 160. So more to come on that one. Fund 135, retirement IMRF. I do not have the rates for FY '22 yet. The revenues at the top, again, Health Department, Veterans Assistance, Joint Dispatch, and 911 all pay for their portions. And then the county has their portions paid through the property tax. This year, it is at 11.65%, so that could change. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that one? Yeah, I see that. The regular rate is 7%. This left rate, which is the sheriff's department, is 11.65. All right, fund number 137, which is retirement FICA. Again, that's based off of the transfers received from Veterans Assistance, 911, Joint Dispatch, and Health Department for their portion, and the property taxes, and that's just kind of based off of the number of employees. And I left it at 425. All right, fund number 150 is County Farm. County Farm, I left, again, that one is also out for bid, so it may change. Refund and reimbursements, I kept the same. Farm rent, I just based it off the trend. I'm just waiting on, the finalization of who's gonna get that contract. Interest, I left the same. The only thing I changed here was the farm expense. I went ahead and raised the 80,000 per the management committee, because there's discussion on tiling, and it was estimated 50,000 be requested. So that's the reason for that increase. Now, the transfer to the general fund and the transfer to county capital improvement, I went ahead and requested 40,000 for each. The capital improvement fund currently is sitting at 50,000, and with some of the things that are going to be requested, the 40,000 transfer would suffice.
What is, John, what's going on with the Walker, whatever happened at the county board meeting there a week or two ago, and people, has anything been said to Walkers, or are they still, I assume, being allowed to bid, or what's happened there?
Well, there was, at the last management committee meeting, there was discussions about that in preparation for sending out the bid request for the lease, which is up this year. And I think that some of the things that were pointed out was, while they may not be a perfect tenant, they've stepped up and helped the county out on a couple of occasions. Most recently with the virus, they voluntarily came forward to extend their contract for another year without us having to go out for bids. They also, the rent that they've been paying, the last time it was bid, there was quite a distance between their bid and the next lowest bidder.
Exactly.
So, there's some things in their favor, and there's been a couple times examples of where they didn't do things that we were wanting them to do, and I think the way it was left is that a letter, and Amanda can answer this better than I, but a letter was written and sent to them to point out the areas in which we want attention.
I guess that was after hearing the discussion at the board meeting, the full board meeting about that.
But
Okay,
there's no,
I'm not saying that maybe they aren't doing something that maybe they should be, but if we're not communicating with them, which it sounds like we are, and explaining that, and having a dialogue between the two of us, it's hard to, okay, now you're in trouble for it and you can't bid now, all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, you didn't say anything.
Was there a response to the letter?
Have you gotten any response yet, Amanda?
Today's my first day back, I'm not sure.
I don't think she has. I
No.
didn't see anything in the mail. Nothing came across,
Okay,
The only thing that we got.
unless it's in your email.
right.
The only thing that we
And it's
got
not.
was a check we deposited for
Oh.
the fertilizer.
Yeah, that was the fertilizer reimbursement.
But
Well,
otherwise,
yes.
no, we haven't gotten any mail.
I guess my point is that it's hard to penalize somebody for something that there hasn't been a dialogue about, and it seems, I guess I don't have a dog in the hunt other than we're trying to balance the budget and they pay a lot of money. And I don't think as you pointed out at the meeting, that we should be, you're in trouble or something, and now you can't do this when we didn't. If we had a beef, we should have said something, and it sounds like that's what's happening, so that's all I wanted to know.
Well, so you're saying there was no written response, but we don't know if there was a phone call response at this point, right? Or do you know?
Right, we don't know anything yet. They haven't responded as far as.
Well, does John know?
I have not received a response. I didn't send the letter, however. I think Lyle Barron's the one that signed the letter, and I'm not sure if he's heard anything back or not.
He did call me.
Probably can check with him on Thursday when we have policy.
Yeah, he may have more information then. He did call me last week and asked me where it was posted for bid because Walker Farms wanted to know. So I think he's been in contact with him. So
I think one other comment I would add to the whole thing is that there is a clause in the lease that says that if the tenant doesn't perform up satisfactorily, they can be denied the opportunity to bid in the future. To me, that's kind of an extreme measure and should only be used if there is an extreme deficiency on the part of.
Or agreement can't be made when it's brought to their attention. I mean, you can't just pull out that extreme response when they're up to this point, there's been no communication. I think that seems extreme.
Yeah, I can assure you that I'm not in favor
No, I
of
know.
anything to deny them the opportunity to bid.
I think it's a bad image for the county that, okay, you didn't do this, we didn't talk to you about it, and now you're kicked out. I mean, that seems, doesn't seem fair. But,
Or, by the way, you've been paying through the.
and you've been paying us more than $100+ an acre more than anybody ever wanted to, and now we're mad at you and we're going to kick you out over it. Not that if there's an issue, it doesn't need to be resolved, but
There is no such thing as a perfect tenant.
no, that's right.
Yeah, there is, not having one.
All right, sorry.
All right,
I just didn't know what had happened.
Computer was pulling the plow then, huh?
Not me. I don't pull anything. I got a tractor that'll do it, but I'm not.
all right.
I think
So
it'd be a little bit of a conflict of interest. Some group would be up watching that.
You mean self-dealing?
What's that?
They call it self-dealing?
Yeah, well, I'm just considering another county's watchdog group would be looking at that one.
They're right there in this county right now.
That's what I'm saying. We don't.
They're very active in the town of Milford right now.
I didn't know there was anything that exciting over there.
They didn't come to the meeting.
All right.
all right. So moving forward, Fund number 155, solid waste disposal. I left that the same. We still do one recycling event per year with the city of Watseka. That has not happened yet this year, but in FY19, the total expense to the county was $6,666.88.
Where are you at now?
Charlie, I'm gonna get ready to be on Fund 820, page 35.
That's right.
See, you're right on track.
One thing, if we back up about that, about the recycling with the county, I think that's probably gonna take place this year. I've not heard anything yet, but Mark Garfield is going to school
Yeah, he's at corrections school.
training. So he's the one that spearheaded that for the city before, so I'm not sure if, where that's all gonna fall into place.
Sure. All right, so just a side note, Fund 815, mental health. I won't have mental health budget until the end of August because they don't meet until, I don't remember what she said, but it's the second week of August, I believe. So as soon as I get that budget sheet, I will share. But as far as Fund 820, this is the 377 board in discussion with Llewellyn Strong, who's the president. As of 7/12/2021, they've requested $639,727, which is an increase from this year, which was $591,220.
Then that's based on their maximum request that they can make for the levy on property taxes.
Correct.
I point out also that Llewellyn, for the past 3 years, has been wanting to resign. I've been searching for replacement. I think I may finally have found someone.
Well, good, good.
She and I will be getting together in another week or so on that.
Okay. Okay. All right, Fund 830 is the historical documents. This is through the Historical Society. That's who I contact for their numbers. The property taxes right now are at $11,200. Lisa Hines agreed to transfer over $20,000 from court documents. So she is going to do the $20,000, and then they left the $11,200 in for a request on property taxes, which again is based off their budget.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Nope. Guess we're up to Mr. Kurt.
Got some numbers. You got a book for me or something?
No, I emailed you yours. Here. It's always the men.
That's right.
It's always the men. Let's see where you're at. There you go. The bottom.
Yeah, I know, but did we, the revenue part, Bob took care
Oh,
of?
the revenue part Bob took care of, but you have other revenues. And it's the first, it's in the front, like the second page.
Okay.
No, third page, my bad. This isn't your first rodeo, Mr. Albers. If you want to do revenue first, you can. You do all the ones that say tax.
Well, you said Bob took care of the property taxes.
He took care of the property taxes, so you need to do the ones that end in tax.
Okay, soil and water. I just left it for 22, what we had budgeted for
What page
21.
are you starting on?
He's,
Was that? Oh,
I'm looking at the
he's going
revenue.
over the revenue, which is page 5.
let's see, sales and use tax. Let's see here. I dropped it down a little bit only because the governor has been saying that he's been wanting to cut some of it. So, the 1,150,000, like I said, it was just a rough estimate. I mean, because there's really nothing out there on the state websites that ever tell us how much they're ever gonna give us. So I mean, that number we could adjust up if we need to adjust it up a little bit, but I would just kind of leave it where it's at. Same way with replacement tax and the income tax. You know, we had budgeted for 21, 1405, but I dropped it a little bit due to COVID stuff, that I don't think we're gonna get as much.
Kurt, you're looking at the forecasting.
What's that?
You're looking at the forecast. So for the budget for sales used in supplemental for FY21 is at $1 million. So you actually put in $1,150,000 as the FY22 budget.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just,
And, you know, and the 21 numbers are up through what, May,
June.
through June, so we got another 6 months to go yet,
Mhm.
okay? So, like I said, sales and use, I raised it from the budget number of 150,000. Replacement tax, I raised 5,000. And income tax, I went up 200,000.
Is that number on the income tax, I mean, it says we got 703 or whatever, and it looks like you just doubled it. Did we get that in installments? Is that how that's paid?
It's
Because
paid
in
by
monthly.
monthly.
Oh, okay.
They pay, state pays us monthly.
Okay. So
So in that case, yeah, of course, this has 6 months.
Yeah.
forecasting.
it looks like we're
About right on track, yeah.
Okay. Very good.
So the cannabis tax, I guess, we could leave that, hopefully we'll sell more marijuana. More good expenses.
No video games really pulled through at the end of 2021 there.
Yes, they did.
And when they open up, people went nuts.
People spent all the money they weren't allowed to for a while.
Alright, so he's gonna go to Fund 110, 430, and it's page 37 on the one right.
So the only difference on here is, I think in the deputy clerk, that salary I raised a little bit more than what it usually is to kind of cover. My chief deputy is going to be retiring this year. Or not this year, next year. And next budget is cycle, so that's kind of, I'm gonna have some overlapping salaries for training. So we just kind of left it in the chief deputy line for the time being. Or we can, move it between the deputy clerk and the chief deputy if we need to. And then it also covers, this summer I have had an intern, that's a high school kid that's been working. I think I've calculated out, it's like $2,000 we're paying, he'll be paid over the entire summer. So that's also included in that deputy clerk salary for next year. Because I was trying to get it free through the county, but he didn't meet the income requirements. And then office expense I raised up to 6,000.
Okay.
I thought we raised, Joe, I thought on the postage, I thought we went higher than 50.
You had 47, and we went to 50.
Okay. Because we had budgeted 57 this year, but I think it's gonna be, I'm talking with Brian and Bob, we won't have as many mailings this year as we did last year. And she thought one of the mailings she's got coming up, her grant, she's got a grant or something that'll take care of it, so.
Okay. Good.
Office expense on 380, 430. I went up just a little bit more to cover some software updates and stuff that we're going to need to do.
Okay.
Solar farm decommission, I don't think, I'll have to talk to Bob, but I don't think we have to bring in any more money or whatever to cover the bond. That's what the 28,580 was, we got money sitting in account for that decommission. I think it's, I'm not sure which solar farm it is.
Louis K.
Oh, Louis K. Okay. And then I don't know if there's any more coming in. If there is, I think all that's still on hold, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, on the trust fund, this one's a little different. That is, if we have somebody in the county who dies and they can't find their heirs, we hold the money
until they can for, I think it's like 2 to 3 years before we mail it on to the state. So it's not in the budget for this year because I didn't know it, but we received out of somebody's estate about $380,000 that we're holding at the moment. So that's why on the contingent, the expenses, it says 390, that is just in case we find them or they come forward for me to pay them out, that's that budget number. But like I said, it doesn't show any in the 20 actual yet because we got the money in July after you had done the budget, after she had done the budget number, so.
And it's currently sitting at
Are they related to me?
$389,000.
No, I don't think so.
That's what I asked.
The heirs
Send it to
we
me.
have discovered are in Mexico, and nobody, with the last name, it's the same common name as everybody in Mexico, and nobody could find them. So yeah, after like 2 or 3 years, then we will, so this number will be probably budgeted every year until I get rid of it, so in like 3 years, then the money gets sent down to the state, and then they gotta go from there.
Do we earn interest on that money?
I think we can, yes.
Yeah, we can.
Do we get to keep the interest then or not?
Yes, we do, because it's sitting, we're holding it there. The estate value is whatever the value that that's what we send down, we don't send any interest or anything like that, so.
If we can earn interest on it, we should cover our costs for maintaining it.
Right, I mean, we probably will, I just, at the time, like I said, when we were doing this, like I said, interest, I did budget $100 in interest, because like I said, the interest rates aren't very high.
Right, but still.
Yeah, no, we'll be able to keep the interest that it earns, yeah.
Okay.
And then the next one was the indemnity fee,
2 minutes to read it here.
or the indemnity fund. That's from the tax sale. Jill's got an explanation on there. That's just what roughly I'm guessing we're going to from it from the tax sale.
Okay.
Revolving loan funds. Everybody seems to be making their payments.
Okay.
Sail and air. Like I said, what was that? Some of that money's generated from what we earn at a tax, or from the tax sale, and then the contingent amount is money I've got to pay out if somebody, when they bought the taxes on that piece of property, say there was a lien on it that they didn't know about or whatever, then they go to the judge, and the judge gives them saying that they can get their money back. So that's what that contingent was for. Same way with the tax redemption funds. And a lot of that's been cleaned up due to Joseph Meyer, so we had a lot of, I think, let's see, last year on our tax sale, there was over 100 properties. He'd gotten, I think he's sold over 60 of them that are back on the tax rolls this year, so. That, the other ones just kind of sat on for years, so. Things are, like I said, that trustee seems to be doing a good job, because I mean, they'll go to court, they got the deed, and I just sold some of those properties 30 days later on this last tax sale, so.
Good. Okay, tax county trustee.
This is their fund that we ended up putting on the books because it was an audit finding for the past few years. And since we have Joseph Meyer, then they send the bank,
Right, they send the bank statement.
We really don't have a lot to do with that fund. But Yvonne just balances it.
Yep.
So that audit purposes.
County redemptions.
Okay, so yeah, you see what Jill wrote down here, what that's for when somebody buys property from tax sale.
Okay.
And then
Mobile home tax.
Mobile home tax. I kind of lowered the budget number in the past, it always was higher as to how many mobile homes we actually have in the county, but I kind of budgeted that we're only half of them really pay. So that's the number that we're putting on there. We're working on trying to maybe get those on the tax sale to clean up some of those.
Okay. I think that's it.
Any other questions?
Looks good. All right, thank you. Mr. Drake is it?
How's everybody?
Good.
What sheet would you like to begin with?
We have 110-710, maintenance administration building only.
Okay. I'm gonna be pretty quick here.
Okay.
My service contracts, I would like to keep that the same if possible, 18,000.
Okay.
My maintenance and repair, 20,000, I'd like to keep that the same.
Okay.
Household supplies, 6,000, I'd like to keep that the same.
Everything's the same. Yep. Okay. Very good. Next
I
page.
could have just said that.
I was just trying to look through real quick. All right, we have next county capital improvement fund.
The heat pumps, 20,000, I would like to keep that the same.
Okay.
And right below that, the parking lot, that's over at the courthouse. The south lot will need done next year. The north lot is getting done this year completely, but I'd like to have it all resealed and redone to get it all on the same schedule, so we're not constantly having to do north-south, north-south. But it would just be the kind of thing where we do it and we wouldn't have to worry about it for 3-4 years, sort of like we've been doing over here. So that 25,000, we came up with that number. We were 29,000 this lot cost, and that lot over there is 13,000 square feet smaller.
Okay.
And so I talked to a gentleman from Free Hills, and he said that is more than able to cover that, so that's how we came up with the 25.
Okay.
Okay, then the new item below that, the break room, bathroom, lactation room. That's an item that is going to be, it's on the agenda with management coming up. It's coming Monday. There's work that needs done in there as far as getting the restroom removed that was for the toddlers. There's 2 toilets in there that are for little kids. We're gonna hopefully have that turned into a employee restroom and a break room area. There's another small area that needs a bunch of items removed. That's going to be the future lactation room that's necessary. What else? You and I talked about this.
Yeah, we were just kind of talking about it, and I know in some of the discussions in the meetings, it was discussed that was going to be the break room / secondary meeting room, like the room that the health department took over. And then as far as the bathroom goes, kind of throwing it back and forth, that bathroom area to convert it over to a usable one for employees wouldn't be a bad idea. And you can also possibly label a family bathroom if need be, however you need to do that. And then it was discussed too recently, and drawn a blank as to when and where, but the need for a lactation room for employees. So there is a very narrow, small kitchen in there, and possibly that could be utilized as
We already had to do that at the courthouse a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Provide one, and now we've got to get that over here.
utilize that as a lactation room.
And the fact that we're creating restroom space or altering it, it'll have to all be ADA compliant, that sort of thing. We already did have some work done there earlier this year because Brienne needed her area private and secured away. We had a door and a wall built in there and another wall removed so they can get their voting stuff in and out. And that was kind of the first chunk of work that, we've been talking about since health department started expanding a year ago. And that number Joe and I came up with, that's nothing obviously set in stone. I really want to talk a little bit more in management about it and get some ideas of exactly what people want. I don't want to just start telling people, yeah, we want this, or so
Right.
Board members, whoever, come down there and this is what we want, this is a good idea. So it's kind of up in the air right now, but we wanted to get it in just to sort of get the ball rolling, not to spring that on you in a month or two.
And in the bigger room, there's some wall repairs that need paint.
There's some
If we were
drywall.
to take out the bathroom completely, that's an expense, so it would fall under a capital expense, because of the improvement and, the amount of money that it's gonna be, we just felt that needed to be there.
And do we have the sheet of other things that capital improvement? There it is.
Been looking for that one.
Yeah, we have the planning through 2023.
And we're done.
Yeah, that's
Just do
it.
these couple things and we're easy.
Yeah.
But Chris and I did discuss going out another couple of years,
Yeah, we
but.
probably need to look further down the line or try and think what's coming.
Mhm.
I hate to sound stupid, but I'm pretty much caught up on a lot of things,
That's good.
projects. And,
You
did I say that?
just jinxed yourself.
But it's, we're in a really good spot, project-wise, so I don't want to just start
Yeah.
digging for anything to blow money in.
No.
It's-
I guess I don't know if there's things
Mhm.
like what you were just talking about for 3-4 years from now, the parking lots and those kind of things. Okay, what year is that? I mean, it probably wouldn't take but 2 seconds for you to figure that out, but just to have that kind of,
On paper.
okay, that's this parking lot, probably, whatever, 3-4 years or whatever from now, we're gonna need to do X or Y or, having some of those
They've been on a
things.
3-year cycle.
Okay.
So we're redoing this lot completely, so.
Yeah.
You want to draw a few more columns.
yeah, it might not hurt to just to have that on there, just, that like the back of your hand, but we don't think about that every second like you guys do. Okay,
But I know that the last time we talked about being a bit vague about it at this point, but it just kind of is evolving into something we know that has to be done here. Or we could leave it and do nothing at all. It's,
okay.
but we do need lactation really. Something for that. That's
All right.
for me.
Very good, thank you.
Yep, thank you guys.
All right, joint dispatch.
How's everybody doing?
All right.
All right, so most of this is salary, which unfortunately is a tough pill to swallow, but it makes our life a lot easier as far as what numbers we're gonna be hitting for the year. So these numbers, Jill's already got calculations into it. Jill, did you include the salary page?
Yep.
Okay. The following page will have the salaries of each of the individual employees. So that's how we arrived to that number. There was $75,442 for overtime in there. That's mainly because of the way that we pay overtime. It's based on the day, not based on our traditional 40-hour work week, 80-hour pay period situation. So we end up paying a lot more on overtime because of that. Doing my best, and we'll try again when we get down to negotiations to try and change that. No guarantees, no promises, but there are going to be some suggested changes. We'll see what happens during negotiations, which is during or at the end of FY22. Fire, volunteer ambulance, I'm going to
I'm gonna go back to the page and I'll touch the majority of it. So transfer from fire, volunteer ambulance, and transfer from police. All three of those went up by 5%. There is a challenge that I have in the transfer police. This number still includes the village of Gilman. Obviously, Gilman does not have a police department. I do not believe the last that it appeared that they are going to pursue an option for a police department at this time. So that, I think last year was right around 2,000. That number's still in here when I did this. I don't know where you guys want to go with this, if you want to disperse that through the other departments, leave it out and change some other figures. I'm willing to listen to what you prefer to see. And then the big numbers that we're going to have the shock value. Transfer from general fund, city of Watsika, and from the ETSB, 192, 391.79. That's splitting the rest of the numbers evenly to get it straight down to a zero budget. Incidentally, you'll also see that I am requesting nothing for public safety tax to go into this. This is usually a conversation point we get into every year, that the preference to see from the public safety tax is to go to a capital expense versus going to salary. In the ETSB budget, when we talk about that at the next Finance Committee meeting, I'll be requesting $200,000, and that's part of that is for the sheriff's portion of the public safety software suite. So this way, this does not have to come out of general fund. And then the other 150 is also for the ETSB portion of it, and that's why the transfer from the three of us are so high. Questions?
I guess for us, the total cost for employee dispatch is actually less, but I just can't imagine the city of well, not from the general fund, but between the public safety and the general fund.
It's a sticker shock.
The county portion is, in total, from different funds, is actually slightly less, but I just can't imagine, I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but having sat at the table with the city of Watsika, I can't imagine they're not going to be able to be anywhere near that number.
They're going to be none too thrilled. Chief Douglas sits on the ETSB, and obviously the dollars comes from one of his budget line items to go over to for that transfer. So they do not prepare for a number that large. So I'm waiting to see if we're going to have a meeting with their finance people with the village, but so far that hasn't come to fruition. But right now this is kind of where we're at. And if there's some suggested changes, I'm sure the ETSB will be happy to listen.
Yes.
It's important to note that our number needs to be the same as theirs.
Well, and that too, yeah. Sure, that was always the agreement, was that Watsika and the county would pay the
Actually, if
same.
our number goes down, our total cost will increase because we'll have to come out of another pocket, but on that line item, those two numbers need to be the same.
Right. Correct.
And Eric, you said there's a 5% increase from from fire and volunteer ambulance?
Fire, volunteer, ambulance, and police.
Okay.
That was a 5% increase. The transfer from Riverside, I'm sorry I didn't talk about this one. This one's already a contracted number. We have a 3-year contract, which is going to expire at the end of FY22. So, sure, Chairman Sure or whoever is chair at the time, we'll need to work with Riverside to set up another contract. I believe it was set up as a 4% increase year after year, or was set for a 5? Okay.
So is
Which-
that,
which
is that
is
why
in
you're
line.
basing the other increases off of the 5?
The reason I'm using the 5% is because of the salary increases for
Gotcha.
the 911 employees. They get roughly 5% every year. They get a 2.5% at the beginning of every fiscal year, and they get 2.5% at their anniversary date. So it's roughly 5%, so that's the number that I've stuck with.
Okay, just curious.
Great question, thank you. And just as a point, when I get into the group insurance, obviously going into FY21, our group insurance rate was very, very steep at 17%. So to cover my butt, I put it at 20%. So depending on what Susie comes back with later in the year, you'll probably see some cost savings because we'll need to adjust that number accordingly.
We definitely have a cap of 10% if the committee decides to stay with Homestar.
Okay. So that number needs to be adjusted.
So
That we
that
can at
number
least
will
for
go
sure,
down roughly about $5,000.
yeah, we can for sure move that number down. Okay. Anybody have any more questions on that? If not, we'll go to, what's that, sorry?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's it.
Well, Eric, your 911
We have a-
budget is in here, but it hasn't been to your board yet, correct?
Yeah, it has been in front of my board at least once
Oh,
already.
okay.
If you want me to talk to it, I can.
Sure.
Sure.
My salary, I'll start off with the money. We're predicting, based on year after year, I'm kind of predicting we're gonna be at the 540,000 mark. The ETS Act was signed into a public act for 2 years, so our FY22 and FY23. That's good for us. That means we're guaranteed that same $1.50 that we're currently getting, so our surcharge money will remain the same. I'm predicting that to be about 540. The 2021 forecast in there is not entirely accurate. Let's see here. Then we have a line item transfer from sheriff, which is very badly misspelled. He transfers over about $1,500 per quarter. That is for his portion of the jail software, or InterSlam. And then we have the request for the public safety tax of the $200,000. Now again, part of this is going to be sheriff's expenses because of the public safety software suite that we're looking to do a capital improvement on for next year. Now it is possible, depending on when we select our vendor from the ETSB side of it, some of these funds may not necessarily come out of FY22. It may come out of FY23. And the reason for this is because they don't bill us all in one chunk. It's generally
On that thing, that's the system we talked about at the first of the year or so.
correct. And
But I thought E ETSB had money for your portion and we were just worried about, I mean, I didn't know that was the expectation that was coming out of public safety. I don't remember discussing that at the time.
this was only one way that I had gone with it, because I've been requesting 150 for the last 2 years to go into the joint dispatch, which is also kind of taking care of some of the county and the city of Watseka's fund as well as ETSB responsibility, rather than making it salary once again and making it another conversation piece. I had requested it out of public safety tax. That's the only reason why I did it that way. Otherwise, I may have, and if ETSB would have paid its 150, I may have put the 150 from public safety tax to go into the telecommunicator salary. One of the bigger challenges of what we're faced with is finding the funds to go into the joint dispatch. Again, the ETSB doesn't have a final budget yet either. This is still, they've still got some line items to discuss going forward as well, so. Questions with revenues?
Nope.
Department head salary, this one's gonna have some fluctuation right now. This is just a placeholder, so we got something in there. It's a shade above 5%. I don't believe my ATSB is gonna go for that kind of numbers, so I expect that to go down. Group insurance, it's just me as their employee, 13,125. Liability insurance is gonna be about 6,500. Jill, when you get a chance, can you get me an updated R&E for both joint dispatch and ETSB, please?
Email me.
I've got some questions on at least our group insurance, or the liability insurance. It says $62, and I know we pay that right at the beginning of the fiscal year. Office expense, 13,500. Again, I don't recall if we've actually spent $2,300 so far this year. That was a lot more. Mileage and travel went down from 7,500 down to 4,000, especially with COVID and everything. That, number one, I was not using that kind of travel money in the first place, so it was better to bring it down and delegate funds elsewhere. Rent, that one is already a fixed number for 2 years. So in FY23, the management committee will be talking about increases in rent for the ETSB. Transfer to retirement, federal income tax, unemployment, those are pretty well fixed numbers based on salary. Transfer to the joint dispatch fund, 192, 391.79, which we already seen in the joint dispatch. Maintenance and repairs has gone up from 90 to 110,000. That number's been set at 90 for quite a while, and things are starting to get more and more expensive, so better to pad that. Purchase of equipment, that's got $230,000 in there. I'm trying to remember our last conversation. We put in an additional $30,000. Trying to remember, Charlie, do you remember why we put the extra $30,000 in there?
Can't recall what it is right now either.
We did have another capital expense that was being brought in on top of the public safety software suite, which is going under the purchase equipment. We're probably going to have to separate that out somehow because for the most part that is software. So Jill, I think we need to figure that out for auditing purposes. Or does it matter for this conversation?
No, not in this conversation.
And then we put the remainder of our funds, the $89,183.21 into contingency, bringing us to a total of expenses $747,000 in our budget. Again, this is not a finalized budget for the ETSB either. They still have a little bit, and depending on conversations with the joint dispatch. Questions?
I realize there's a big project in there, but I just was looking at both joint dispatch expenses and PTSB, and from 2020, because I just figured 2021 was kind of has been well, it's not done yet. And a weird year on top of it. From 2020 expenses to 2021, if you combine joint dispatch expenses with PTSB, we've gone up almost $350,000. And I understand the union contracts, what we always talk about or blame, so to speak, that obviously there's big increases, 5% every year. And that's obviously the truth. But out of that 350,000, 39 of it is salaries and group insurance. Which, and we know group insurance is moving up 10% year over year, and that's 2 years compounded. So I mean, you're between 2020, the group insurance is a significant portion of that 39,000 as well. But it just seems like, I guess I'm not on the ETSB board and I don't know, but man, we spend the numbers. The salaries are bad, and we all know that, and we talk about that, but we spend a lot of money on a lot of other stuff every year too, and not just in total, but it keeps growing, you know, I mean, $350,000 extra dollars is a lot of money.
It is, and when we get into-
Considering you just go back to 2017 and we spent $435 altogether in joint dispatch. I mean, there's a lot of, we're growing by leaps and bounds here.
So just for my edification, if I may, you mentioned so much in salaries and you mentioned so much in health insurance. What were the other?
Sorry, I was just, so what else is contributing
Yeah,
to the
what
big,
else?
well,
Yeah.
part of it's that $230,000 software system, which I think I've already said my piece about that a couple months ago. But that would be by far the biggest and largest one. 230,000 of the, well, no. In 2020, we had $85,000 worth of expenses, so 230 minus 85. That's 145,000 of the 310. Half of the remaining incremental is for that project. But then there's, I don't even know. I guess I'd have to sit here and I need more time, but there's a lot of, everything is increasing significantly, I'd say. The contingency is quite large compared to then. I mean, that's a big part of it, 89,000 versus 5,800. So that would be a big part, but, anyways. I guess my way of looking at it, and I understand they're different boards and different funds, it's all the same money. And we're kidding ourselves if we don't look at it like that, as responsible taxpayers, because we can say, oh, well, it's ETSB's money, and then all of a sudden we're putting public safety money in there because, and then it's general fund money, and at the end of the day, we're just playing games in the rules of how we can spend the stuff, and we're spending the same amount of money. It's all being spent, just depends which pocket we take it out of and how we make that happen, and I guess that's what I guess we need to be concerned about, as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, okay, I guess there's not much we can do until ETSB makes some decisions, and we probably, a big part of that is gonna obviously have to do with Watsika, not, let alone us, but until they give any sort of direction, it probably doesn't do us much good to waller over it, because I think they're probably off by a good 100,000 or more on what they're realistically gonna do, because based on my previous conversations when we've met with the chief there, they already have their numbers approved by now, don't they?
They do.
Normally, that's already a done
I
deal
believe
before we
they're
ever get
in,
to this
like,
point.
Roughly May, I believe, is when their budget goes in.
So I feel like last year we sat, or maybe that was 2 years ago, I don't know, we all sat down together, several of us did, to talk about 911, and he was about increases or whatever, and he was kind of like, our budget's already done, I can't, one thing to wiggle a couple thousand, but to double it or whatever, it wasn't.
I believe their
Even on the
budget
table.
was still going with the 78 that they had for last year, which is what it is, what they did for their budget. Like I said, there's supposed to be a conversation that may happen with the finance people, so at least I can explain the budgets, how they're working, but I haven't seen that come to fruition quite yet.
Has Ms. Watsika been notified of this?
Chief Douglas is aware of it.
Okay.
If he's shown that to his finance at this point, I doubt that, because I don't think that meeting has happened quite yet. So probably their chairperson is aware of it, but after that, I don't think they've had a meeting yet for that to actually have a real conversation in an open meeting.
Okay, well, I guess you meet next Wednesday, all your ETSB meets or whatever, so
Wednesday.
maybe then we have our finance committee the next morning, so maybe you guys will have more information by then, or an update.
Otherwise, if anybody
It
has
was my
any-
understanding that number of 78 from last year was something that was done in anticipation of reduced revenues because of COVID. And we had similar concerns with our budget, and as we found out, we actually didn't get hurt as bad as we thought we would, so I would think that their position might be somewhat similar.
Right.
But in any case, they should have taken that into account in preparing their budget for this year. So if they didn't, maybe they need to readdress it in some way.
I would assume a $100,000 change in anybody's budget is gonna sink the ship pretty quick, so.
Well,
assuming that
I'm
we have
not saying
pretty
it
good
wouldn't, but I am saying that I'm in support of Michael here, which I think is a good point, is that we need to recognize why the number was reduced last year. And we bore the brunt of that. Telecommunicators didn't reduce their salaries because of it.
No.
So we bore the brunt of that accommodation to the city. That needs to be recognized. That accommodation is over with. We're supposed to be going back to normal.
Well, yeah, so normal was, I guess 2020 was the last normal budget, was 120,000, so.
Wherever we think, we want it to be. The more they pay, the less we pay, the more the more it's on.
Just as a final note, if anybody does have comments or suggestions for the ETSB prior to their meeting, here's that number, sits on this board, on this committee. You can also forward that through me, I'll be happy to bring that to my board.
All right, well, I guess so last year, let me just do these numbers again. Last year, we gave, the public safety gave 150. And the county, and the general fund gave 78. 228, and we're talking 192 plus 200, 392. An increase of 164 roughly between the two.
I think we should also at least recognize, I don't have a suggestion of how we could do something different, but the money that the city pays and the money that the ambulances and these other people pay, that only goes to joint dispatch. None of that goes to the 911 part. And that's as much of a part of the expense of providing the total service. It isn't just paying the salaries for the joint dispatcher. The other side is the ETSB part. And
Do we
none of
know-
None of these people are paying anything into that. We're paying all of that through the telephone surcharge and the public safety.
Right. I believe the way Kankakee County works is they use all their phone surcharge, right, for the equipment stuff, and then each,
No, they don't have the separation like we do. They've got
It's all
everything
one,
pretty much together.
but each of the villages that contribute is based on a call volume or something, or is kind of how they figure that number out?
Well, yeah, but Kankakee County gets money from Bradley, Bourbonnais, and Kankakee. That's a different cash cow that they're working with than what we have.
Well, I understand.
We can't get any money from Gilman, and that's our second largest municipality. But that being said, it is what it is. I will say this, that when I brought forth the idea or the request to increase the telephone surcharge, Kankakee County and Champaign County were the only two other counties in the whole state that supported that. So a lot of these other counties, I don't know how they add and subtract their cost for dispatch, but to me, it makes no sense. I mean, I think we have our costs identified as well as you can and allocated in the proper way.
Well, I guess I don't know how all the other counties are, but the one we're always told about is Ford County, and they just have a completely different model that must.
Yeah, I can tell
Be
you
a lot-
I can tell you about Fort County if you want to hear, but that's not what we're here for. Fort County is a mess.
Okay, all right, very good. Well,
Some nation, I guess we heard.
I guess if anyone has any comments, we can get to Eric with Eric before their meeting next Wednesday. But thank you for coming in. All right. Joel.
Alrighty, 610 County Highway, I'm just gonna kind of go over, if there's a major change from last year's budget. There's not a lot on the revenue side. There's a decrease in the township engineering. We were pushed because of the Rebuild Illinois funds to get out some projects for the townships, which I thought meant we'd end up having more full engineered projects, which we charge 8% for rather than 4% for just doing the overseeing of it. So I dropped that back down to basically figuring 4% on the standard maintenance program for the township. So that's the reason that's reduced. The township bridge engineering, that's really, I know what the numbers should be, but the problem is I can't, depends on when it's left, when it's built, so I can't. The combination of about 3 years is what we should have them come in, but I don't know over what period it's gonna come in. So that's just kind of an average. Asphalt revenues, that number actually turns out, the guys were really slow, the townships were really slow with getting the emulsion from us this year. In the last week, we went through another complete tanker and just had another one delivered today. So I'd say that's probably the actual number is next year is probably about 3 times that. But that it's on the revenue side, so I don't see a need to change that. I'd rather be conservative. Miscellaneous, if you look at the miscellaneous, we've been selling a lot of, we've started making our own cold mix. We've been selling a lot of cold mix, culverts, and actually there's a lot of oversized, overweight permits in that. So there's been a steady increase in the miscellaneous line item. On the expenses, you'll see on labor and salaries, there's an increase. We've so far, my technicians are putting in a lot more overtime with the oil and ship contractors because there's so much work out there this year, and it looks like for the next couple of years. So we increased the amount of overtime. Group insurance, I just built that up just a little bit for the increase. Office expenses, just standard increases. Gas and oil. So far this year we've been pretty lucky and pretty conservative. I'm afraid though, if we have a bad winter, I'm not sure that 60 is going to cover it. But I guess I'll deal with that when we get to it. I increased that. We've getting some older equipment. We've been spending quite a bit getting stuff fixed. I've got a couple guys that can do a little bit of routine maintenance, but anything really mechanical I have to sub out. So I've increased that. Road supplies and construction costs. I threw that. Basically, that's a line item. Anything I've got extra, I throw in there because culverts went up when we had ours. Went up 25% when we had our January letting, so they went up since then. And a lot of times when we're doing our cold mix, I'll buy rock. out of that line item, so I don't always know exactly how much, so that's the reason I throw everything else extra in there. Purchase of equipment, still looking at trucks, but no big, single axle dump trucks, but no big commitments on that. Any questions on anything in that? The next one, the payroll?
Yeah.
I did, if you look, I added a line item for a mechanic / fabricator. And if I can find somebody, I don't know if I can find somebody who's got any qualifications for that kind of money, but I'd like to try and find somebody to maybe reduce some of our equipment repair expenses. Is the intention there. And I really could use a fourth person in the back, so it's kind of hard when we got 3 guys. I hate to send one guy out by himself all the time. Just kind of nothing else for safety. So I've added that in there. If I can find somebody, great. If not, we'll just continue on the way we have. 615 County Bridge, unless anybody has anything on that payroll.
No.
The county bridge is the tax levy that we use to help match townships when they build a bridge or a box culvert. Right now, I've got 2 box culverts and 2 bridges on the works. Once again, that's a timing issue. One of them actually has been let, but it's sounding like by the time we get the material in, it probably will not get, that portion probably won't get paid till next year's budget. So once again, that's another one that's really hard for me to, I know what the numbers need to be, I just don't know when they're going to come in. The next one, 620, is our matching tax. That's the one we use to match federal and state funds. It's down from last year considerably, but last year we had the big $1 million bridge in Woodland, and we also had a $400,000 guardrail improvement program. So we had to match quite a bit, considerable amount more money last year. So that's the reason that's lower. So any questions on that?
Nope.
625, county motor fuel tax. The funds, it's a little confusing because the motor fuel tax, I'll just go 21 versus 22. The 21 budget, when I originally did it, I don't think we had the Rebuild Illinois money in the budget. I think we added that. So anyway, with the price of gas, I figure we're going to be losing a little bit as far as the number of people traveling. Even though last year with COVID, you'd have thought it'd been down more than it was. And they keep messing around. They're adding extra in, and then when they passed the increase in motor fuel tax, it was supposed to be in the 68% increase, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's more than that. I don't know how they're calculating that. It's got a lot to do with how much the state's drawing on the top before they divide it out and send it to us. So I was a little more conservative on the motor fuel tax. The Rebuild Illinois, if everything goes well, that should be our last. That was supposed to be a 4-year deal, so that should be our last of that. On the expenses, the salaries, that's just a standard increase in the salary reimbursement. That's because of the additional mechanic, assuming I can hire one. The transfer to county highway, that is for insurance reimbursement for the employees in the back, the maintenance employees. The contractors and supplies, that's considerably higher because that Rebuild Illinois funds, they actually wanted us to spend it as we got it, but I had to spend it on a bondable project, which meant it had to be an asphalt job or a bridge, so that there's gonna be about $1.2 million of that's gonna go to redoing the 2-mile stretch by the Ashland Quarry. So that's why that's considerably more. I got state says I have to spend that as soon as possible. Township Bridge 630. Anybody got any questions on? Okay. Township Bridge. We're down a little on our allotment, and that is because our allotment is based on the number of efficient bridges. So actually, that's a good thing for it to be going down. But unfortunately, the way things are going, I don't know how much longer the price of bridges are increasing at the rate that I'm afraid it's going to be turning around going the other way. And then we've got every bit of that I'll be spending. There's actually Township Bridge program is actually held by the state until we request the money. So there's actually money still there that doesn't show on our balance that I'm trying to get spent down before they decide to take that. So the last one, 635, is the township motor fuel tax. This is always my biggest stab in the dark because I never know what my road commissioners are going to do. I know a couple of them have a few bigger projects they're wanting to do with this Rebuild Illinois money, that we're hoping to get some of that spent down for them. And then with the oil chip, unfortunately, this year's prices probably are not going to be maintained. Everything we've seen, they're going to go up. We had like I said, we had a 68% increase in motor fuel tax funds, and right now I think with the last bids that I've seen, we're looking at like a 40% increase in the cost. So it's just pretty much ate all of our advantage out. So we're looking at maybe around 4.6 million in township. And that's pretty close to what we're actually right around. The forecast shows 1 million, but it's closer to 320 something is actually what it is. But I know this just basically takes half the year and doubles it, so that's the reason. But that's where we're at on that. Any questions on it? As you well know, it's all big guessing game anyway.
No, looks good.
State funding.
I think we're good.
All right. You have any questions? Feel free.
Is there actually on the 911, on ETSB, is there like a capital plan for ETSB? Maybe we need a copy of that.
Yeah, we just revised it last month.
Okay, that might be good to get a copy of that.
I'll mention it there.
Okay.
More 5 more times. Sure. I'm gonna have to go over it, but.
How does the board feel about that software thing? Are you guys feel like we need to do that?
Or what?
I said, how do you guys feel about the software, the big project, the $230,000 project? Is that the board agrees that needs to be done?
We're putting together kind of like evening out as we go type of capital expenditures.
I guess my feeling would be, and I don't know, and I don't sit there and I don't go to all the meetings, but given all the things we talked about at the beginning of the year, I could see setting money aside for it if there's a way to do that, okay, can we sock money away so the money's there when we actually need it? But as we discussed back then, and maybe something's changed, my thing is that we're gonna go to the company that's offering the software right now and buy from them again. Under the only concern seems to be, at least from the sheriff and I think everyone, was that it's functioning, it's old, but it's functioning, you don't have any problems, they're still servicing it, and we were gonna go get new software because it's old, and the concern that maybe they wouldn't service it, and my thing, when we had those discussions 6 months ago, was that if they're gonna not service it and just leave us hanging overnight, then we don't wanna buy from them again, because those are horrible people to do business with. They don't give you a year or two notice that, hey, next year we're not gonna service that software anymore, then we don't wanna buy from those people. And if they're not willing to do that, then we sure as hell don't wanna do another project with them. And I guess, that being said, if it's functioning, they're servicing it, there's no great extra bell or whistle that we need that we don't have today, and maybe there is.
What was the estimated cost of that CAD software that Eric quoted?
I didn't think, I don't know, he's got 230 there, but
30 was something else, I believe. I thought maybe the generator was part of that, but it can't be.
But anyways, I guess, I'm just thinking, if things working, they're servicing it, and there's no warning that they're gonna not service it, the software company's gonna quit servicing it, then
I agree.
I agree, maybe we should put money to the side, but taking off $200,000 this year, if it's not really necessary, and we don't have the money, and first of all, it's gonna come down to this, because I'd eat my hat if Watsika goes up by the increase that he's talking about.
It's not.
And I don't think we should either, as a county. But
Well, and currently 911's account sits at $1,022,705.28.
Can somebody help me understand that? I really don't. We've got $1 million here. The beginning of the meeting, she said we're down 79,000
Oh.
on the other side.
I was gonna say, joint dispatch is down 72.
Right, and so joint dispatch is
Different.
ETSB.
no,
No,
joint dispatch is
Paid through the general fund.
911.
Dispatch.
it's the agreement between the ETSB and the county and Watsika and everybody to
Basically, joint dispatch is the employees and what we pay them, and 911 ETSB is the equipment side of it, is how I was always explained it. And the other expense in 911 would be Eric. And he's supposed to, as far as I understand, manage the joint dispatch employees as well as that fund.
So, we've got what sounds like buku dollars over here. I understand the concept that you can't take dollars always from one pot and put it in another.
Right.
But when we have that kind of money around, I don't know.
No, I understand, I agree.
I simply don't.
I mean, it's something that needs to be, it seems like this is ongoing, every year we have these conversations. And what was the rule of thumb that if you're running your county properly, you need how much cash in the bank to cover how many months worth of spending, or what was the rule of thumb? So,
Jennifer said she didn't need to be here. We could just review her budget.
Oh, okay. Hey, girl, you just spoke up.
We're in the middle of the conference. We're in deep conversation.
Okay, so Veterans Assistant Fund 825, this is page 69, and this is what was turned into me by Jennifer Ingram. The property tax, they requested lower at 63.5. the interest, she has at $21, and miscellaneous revenues, she kept at 1,000. I believe that's in case she gets any donations or whatnot, and she just turns around and spends that. The department head salary is the same. Office expenses, she went down 1,000. Director's education is the same. Telephone the same. Promotion and public relations went up $500. Veterans assistance funds went down $1,000, and then the next 4 lines is her portion to the retirement fund, FICA fund, workman's comp, and unemployment, and those are based off her salary. She did not take our health insurance, so there's no reimbursement line there. And then her miscellaneous line includes the $1,000 for the revenue, which could be potential donations. I know she had some this year, and she has $1,200 and, well, a little over $1,200 in that line. So not much changes for. She has a raise.
There we go.
No,
Finally
yeah.
content.
Yeah, she's happy.
All right.
She's a plan.
I think that's everyone. So the only, what we have, a couple things that we need to maybe adjust. We had,
The county clerk's fees to $75,000. I want to take a look at Joel's and talk to him, because with their ASME contract renewal, they are getting a uniform reimbursement, and that line needs to be added in. So I'll make that adjustment there after I discuss it with Joel. But yeah, and then the only.
that was 75, and then, so that was an extra $10,000 in our favor, and then there was, I wrote it up. It's on whatever page it was. Eric's joint dispatch, was it the group insurance was too high?
Yeah, it needs to be lowered. He had it in as 20%, and if we decide to stay with Lone Star, we have a cap of 10%. So,
Right, so we need to adjust that.
the only noticeable salaries is the assessment. Chief deputy was at a 3% increase. I know we kind of like to keep all those the same. And then with finance, was at a 4% for the department head and for the administrative assistant.
And we don't necessarily need it for tomorrow, but for next week, have, where you do that thing where we can show what it looks like if everybody's at 2.5 or 3 or 4 or whatever. I don't know, pick whatever numbers you think.
Really, everybody's based off the ASME contract so far, except for those 3 positions.
I'm not saying there aren't one-off things where we might make it do different, but normally we keep everything the same. So
Yeah,
maybe
last year we did.
Let's get, do that
except for
analysis like you did where,
Dr. Yusuf and Eric Stacey got his increase. Oh, and then the only other noticeable one that's 911, it's Eric's 5.61% increase. Everybody else's fell right in line with the ASME contract.
well, yeah, if we can just make sure we
Mm-hmm.
figure out where we, or
Yeah.
even just show us what it looks like under the different percentages, whether they're low or high or whatever, because everybody's gonna have to be equalized out, or more than likely will be. That's how it's normally done, so.
Yeah.
That way we know someone put in 3 and another person put in 3.5 or 2.5 or whatever, but
Yeah, I'll put them together.
we have that for next Thursday. And then, that's it. Okay. I guess if there's nothing else in the budget stuff, we have old business or new business. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Meeting
Be
adjourned.
ready for lunch.
It's time. That was good, I'll tell you.
He's like, let's adjourn.